it's Aisha White. I want to start by saying hello to my OG subscribers, those that have been watching from the beginning of my channel, and hello to my new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining in. Hopefully the videos I've been making connect with you in some sort of way. If you're watching this video for the first time or watching my channel for the first time, I make videos about being a better communicator. I just want to grow with my interpersonal skills, and I would like to also engage with you as a viewer and just kind of encourage you in different ways on becoming a better communicator, whether it's in a professional setting or if it's like you sitting down with your significant other or your family members, friends. We're on a journey here to become better communicators. So stick around. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thanks for watching. And today I want to talk to you about the topic of emotions, or more so expressing your emotions. So I think that there are a couple different reasons why people can struggle with expressing emotions. I think one reason is that you may feel uncomfortable expressing emotions. So you might be uncomfortable with the act of being vulnerable. To express how you truly feel, that means that you have to open up to somebody. And when you're opening up to somebody, there's all these other factors involved, like trust. You have to trust someone with that information, with potentially crying or whatever it is that comes along with that emotion that you're feeling. And you have to trust that that person is going to treat you with care and not make you feel judged or reject you as a result of the things that you've said and the emotions that you've expressed. And to get to that point, sometimes it can take a long time to get to a place of trust with someone to feel that you can open up to them and be vulnerable with them. And so it's almost like this fear of opening up. And so you don't necessarily feel comfortable with sitting down and talking to somebody about it. And I just want to encourage you to not give into that type of fear. Now, I completely get it. If it's a stranger and you're at the bus stop and you don't want to turn to them and tell them about your inner world and all these feelings that you felt, completely understandable. But maybe if it's a friend or a member of your family that genuinely wants to know how you are and what's going on in your life, even if it's starting small and starting slow with just one person, I encourage you to start to step into that more and more, lean into being okay with being vulnerable with them. And there's no guarantees that you won't hit a wall with that. You might start to be like, hey, I'm going to decide to open up to this particular person. And you might see that as you're talking, like the faces they're making are like, this is not okay. I think this person's weird, or I think this person's strange. But don't let it deter you. Maybe get to the end of your statement, and maybe you don't want to keep going any further, but at least you've put it out there. And it will be uncomfortable to feel like you're being judged, or you try to read that person's face and their reaction to see what they're doing and how they're taking in what you're saying. But you've taken one step closer to getting better internally because you've gotten those feelings out and you've said them aloud rather than allowing them to live inside your head and never being able to express them in any way. So number one, get comfortable with being vulnerable and not giving in to fear. I think another reason that people can run into a challenge when it comes to expressing their emotions is because they may be unaware of their emotions. I know one of the most easily identifiable, examples would probably be when somebody asks how you are. I'm the type of person that if I ask how you are, I genuinely want to know how you are. Sometimes there are times where it's like, hey, not the time, not the place for us to get into this. And people, I think everybody knows that one person that just lives and thrives off drama at all times. And you're like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, ugh, let me tell you, life. And you're like, oh, okay, there's a story coming here. Did not know that I had triggered something. I just wanted to hear, I'm good, I'm well, I'm fine. But what's happening here is we're about to get like a long dramatic story. Okay. And you immediately regret it. And so you're like, no. If somebody asks me, you're like, I'm not going to be that person. If somebody asks me how I'm doing, I'm going to say good and keep it moving. But I do genuinely want to know if it's somebody I know and care about. I want to know how you're doing. On the flip side of that, however, if someone comes up to me and says, how are you? Then I'm going to say good and keep it moving. Or, I'm good, I'm well, and keep it moving. But there are times I've realized that what I say does not match what my face says. And so someone will be like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, good. And sometimes in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't even believe that one. Like when it came out good, like you could barely like get it out. No, I'm fine. No, I'm good. And sometimes they're like, yeah, sure. Or when they first ask how you're doing, it's like that their tone or their face gives it away that they are implying that you don't look as though you're doing good. And so when someone comes in, they're like, instead of like, hey, how you doing? It's more like, you okay today? And you're like, yeah. They're like, okay. And then for me, I immediately go, am I okay? I don't know. What is going on? Am I okay? And now it's like I'm going in my brain, like, thinking back to the things I've said or done and like the last few weeks. Am I internally okay? And I'm starting to ask myself, like, who am I truly? And it'll be like this whole like spiraling into overthinking. I'm like, what? I don't know. I don't know if I'm okay or not. And it sounds ridiculous, but seriously, sometimes I cannot recognize if I'm happy or if I'm sad or if there's something that's starting to really bring me down. And it's almost like it catches me off guard because I think I'm okay. And then the closer and closer I get to maybe whatever situation that might be at the root of it or the cause of these negative emotions, it's not until I'm facing it and in the moment that I realize, like, oh, this has been what has been causing this all along. Or in a lot of cases, someone else has to point it out to me and let me know that, hey, this may be connected to the emotions that you're feeling. So for years, I struggled with IBS. It's irritable bowel syndrome. It's been made fun of in like TV shows and things like that, made the punchline, but quite honestly, it's not a sexy disease or anything. Not that any disease is sexy, but it's not fun to talk about. It can be embarrassing, quite honestly, but it's a challenge to live with. And the way that it affects your body, what I've been told, at least by doctors that I've seen, is that it's a brain-gut connection. And so when you stress out, when you experience anxiety, it affects your gut and it affects your body negatively. What it does is it disrupts your digestive system, and you get a whole host of things that come as a result of that. A bunch of different symptoms that you can experience. And that's super inconvenient just in daily life, going out and trying to have fun with your family and friends, or in work settings largely. And it led to me having a panic attack at one point. It was early on before I was able to identify what was wrong with me. And I had gotten my first like legit full-time job. It wasn't, before that I had like a short-term contract job. And this is my first legit job I had signed on for, and I was excited, but I was working this other job on the weekend, and that on top of other responsibilities I had a lot going on. And I write about it, actually, this experience that I had, in one of my very first blog on my website. So my website is called whitehottact.com. I will link to it in the description area, and you can go check it out. It's where my professional portfolio is from writing that I've done as a copywriter, but then also it's where some creative writing is. I've got a poem there, and then I've got written blogs from all the people that I've interviewed last year. Anytime I interview somebody, then I write an accompanying blog about that person and our relationship, how we came to know one another. And so I've got a whole basic archive of those. But my very first blog post before I ever interviewed anybody via YouTube was this blog that I had written about I was on the cusp of turning 30. The title of it is You're Getting Spiritually Enlightened at 29. It's inspired by lyrics from a 1975 song. But in it, I'm thinking back to 2015, I believe it was, when I was experiencing this anxiety and all these things that built up and just boiled over into this panic attack that I had while I was behind the wheel of a car driving at night with my then boyfriend in the passenger seat. And it was terrifying, quite honestly. I didn't know what it was and what was happening until after the fact. Like, I Googled it and looked up all the symptoms and was like, oh, okay, I was having a full-on panic attack. I've never had one since then, but it was enough to deter me. It was enough to make me not want to have them again. And so anyway, it was stress and anxiety fueled, basically. I had been stressing about something, a number of things, and did not recognize it at the time, and it hit me all at once in the most inconvenient time ever, behind the wheel of a car, driving at night, and freaking out, and not realizing that all these things had caused it, and had caused this other series of events that were going on within my body. So, yeah, stress can affect you in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of negative ways, and you might not even realize what's happening. And so for somebody like me, what has to happen is that either I can, if I'm really think about it, I can focus hard and try and recognize the emotion that I'm experiencing, and try and kind of like pull it out of me and deal with it. It's almost like, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like I have to take myself out of my body and view it from outside of me to address it. And so it's almost like, okay, this is the issue that's at hand. Let's put it up on the board and let's view it in this area and dissect it, because otherwise I kind of lose it and I can't necessarily key in on what the issue is, or what the problem is, or what the root of the issue is. Or a lot of times it helps for somebody else to point it out to me. I want to be able to get to a place where I don't need other people to point out that something is wrong. But it has helped immensely over this past year, when I've gone through different things, to have somebody to bounce my ideas off of. And I come to a conclusion after saying it aloud. So it's like the thoughts come to me in my mind, and I'm saying them aloud and working them out as I'm talking. And so what's coming out in my mouth is not necessarily my final idea. I'm talking it through and then picking the pieces and putting it together as I'm talking it through with somebody. So that's a lot of times how I come up with ideas, like on a creative level. And then also when it comes to emotions, it has to come out of me, and as I'm working it, I work it out as it's coming out of me and I'm bouncing it off somebody. So as I'm saying something, and the person might hear and they might be like, well, yeah, that's obvious. I can clearly see that that's the issue, or I can clearly see what the solution is. I'm trying to get there by saying it aloud, and that's how I process emotion and my feelings. And so I think there's probably plenty of people out there that are that way also. And so people handle it differently. So you may be uncomfortable with their feelings, and there's this fear of vulnerability, or you may struggle to recognize what your feelings are and be able to put your finger on exactly what's wrong. And with that, sometimes you have to find help from other people, allow them to help you draw those emotions out, or you have to take time for yourself to really focus in and key in on the issue so that you can draw those emotions out. But it's going to take some time and maybe a little bit more digging than it might for some people. And that's okay. We're all wired differently. As long as you're getting to the core of what's wrong and you're able to get that emotion out. Some people may feel that they have a challenge with expressing their emotions because they feel that they are a burden to others. And it can be difficult to get your feelings out there when you do feel that way, because you don't want to say all these things. You don't want to take up that person's time, because people's time is valuable. You don't want to feel judged by them, but just know that you're not a burden. Now, if you are taking advantage of somebody and they're lending their ear to you all the time, and you are talking about the same thing over and over again, then you might want to reevaluate you all's dynamic and pull back from doing that, because it gets to a place where you can take advantage of that person and their time. But if they're a good friend and it's somebody that you're comfortable with, then you should know that comes with friendship, is you being there for one another, whether it's good, fun times, hanging out, but then also when you are going through negativity, or even, it might not even be something that's completely negative, but it just may be something that you're trying to make a decision on, I don't know, like a job, a prospective job opportunity or something like that, and you just need to talk it through with somebody. Rather than feeling like you're a burden to them, go find the person that you're comfortable with, the person that's close to you, and talk to them about it. And I think that is this great point I remember years ago that one of my pastors brought up in church, and he was saying that like everybody plays these roles in our lives. So you basically kind of disperse the energy that you give out to different people based upon the different roles that they play. So like you have your significant other, and of course you can talk to your significant other about a varying amount of things, but maybe you reserve like the office gossip for your friend rather than your significant other, because they might just not really care, quite honestly, or they might not be the one that you can really talk about that type of thing to, whereas maybe your friend is open to hearing something like that and it's entertaining for them, but not entertaining for your significant other. Or if you want to talk about like, I don't know, this like really rare random fact that's, and really nerd out about it, you may have a friend that shares that same interest as you, or like a family member, and you go and you call your mom because y'all both have that same specific interest. And so it's like each person that is in your life can play these different roles and be these different outlets for your interest and your energy, and you place it into those different people. So basically kind of laying out the cards and seeing who is a good receiver of whatever information is that you're putting out. So if you're feeling sad and down, somebody that is really good at comforting you and somebody who has a track record of being able to do that, that is the person that you go for that. And not that you always drown them in sorrow and sadness. Like, go to them when you have good news to share also, or you just have a funny story. Go talk to them with that too, so there's balance. But just knowing, like, identifying who to talk to about what things, because usually over time, living life, you come to realize that there may be somebody that you thought that you could talk to about a certain thing, and you start it and you realize like, oh, okay, I'm not getting a good reception as a result of this, and you just make a mental note that that's not the person to talk to about this topic, just based upon how they have reacted in the past. And that doesn't mean it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just they're not the one to talk to about that certain thing. But just identifying who to talk to and who to give that energy to, then I think that will take you, a really long way when it comes to expressing your emotions and not feeling like you're a burden to someone. So when you feel that it's a challenge to express your emotions, one of the options out there is to bottle everything up, which is not a good idea whatsoever. I highly suggest against it. Do not bottle up your emotions. If you do that, we all know how it's going to end. It's going to end badly because it all comes out at once, and it's usually in the worst way or at a very inconvenient time. For me, sometimes it would be me bottling up my emotions, and the person that was closest to me was my significant other. And so they do one thing that, in any other point in time would be a minor annoyance. But in that moment, it felt like, oh no, like them's fighting words is what you just said. And it blew up because I had already had these things that were piling on, and just the smallest, smallest trigger just set everything in motion. And now I'm overreacting to something that in perspective is not a huge deal at all. And you don't want to do that because it comes out in embarrassing ways, and kind of fortunate if it is a significant other, because if of anybody, they might be the most forgiving person. If you lash out at a friend, or you lash out at a family member, or you lash out at a coworker, then it could spell even bigger trouble for you, and they may be less forgiving, or it could completely, end your career, depending on how you lash out and who you lash out to. And so you can prevent all of that and going through that trouble by getting your emotions out there, by acknowledging those emotions, and working through them. And if you have to talk to somebody about them, talk to those people that you identified to talk to about your emotions. But the last thing you want to do is hold them in. And I know it can be difficult, especially within society. There's all these social norms and things that are, I guess, accepted to say, like, oh, for example, like men, shouldn't be overly emotional, and all these expectations that are really unrealistic of people to be like these soldiers and always strong at all moments, rather than being able to let go and be vulnerable at times. And finally, I just want to say, to reiterate, really, to get your emotions out there. You don't want them to bubble over. You don't want them to affect you negatively, because they can manifest themselves in so many physical ways, and you'll be stuck trying to remedy that as a result of you holding all that in. The only way for you to get past particularly negative emotions is to get to the core of it, to acknowledge it, to talk about it, and to be able to move through it. Because too often I found myself in situations where I was holding on to these negative emotions, whether I realized it or it was brought to my attention at some point. I didn't know how to deal with them. And what I was doing was re-experiencing those emotions over and over again. And what it was doing was stressing me out. It was depressing me. And I was getting to this place where I didn't feel like myself anymore. And even in that, I didn't recognize it right away. But people viewing me from the outside were able to recognize that I wasn't quite myself. And it was like, after a while, I was able to get to this place of self-awareness and be like, wait, am I going about life differently? I'm starting to feel different. And it was confirmed. And I had to pray. I had to find different ways to get out of this haze, really, that I was experiencing as a result of these negative emotions. And had I addressed it before, had I been able to identify it, then I would have been in a much better place. But because I can get into the tendency of holding things in and not taking time to take care of myself, then, as a result, I suffered physically from it. And so don't get to that point. Prevent yourself from getting to that point of stress and anger and all these things that can affect you negatively, physically and mentally. You can avoid all that by being upfront with those emotions, by acknowledging those emotions and working through them and talking to the right people to address those emotions. It's okay. It's okay to open up. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to recognize how you feel and express how you feel. It's okay to know how you feel, and it's okay to not know how you feel, but to be able to ask for help in recognizing those emotions and get it out there. So I'm here to encourage you, get those emotions out there. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't be fearful of it. I know it can be uncomfortable and uneasy going into it in the beginning, but it is okay. I promise that you won't regret getting in a better place. We've got to take care of ourselves. If we want to be better at communicating, we got to be good at communicating our emotions, and we got to be great at taking care of ourselves. Because if you're not in a good place and you're not taking care of yourself, then there's no way you'll be able to take care of anybody else. If you're a parent, if you're a brother, sister, friend, whatever your role is in life, you cannot be effective in being that to somebody else unless you are good internally, mentally, physically. Take care of you. I'm doing this and saying this out of love. I've experienced it myself, and I've seen the people around me experience it in different ways. And so I'm saying it out of love. I love you. I care about you. And I want you to feel good, to feel better about yourself, to feel good overall. And I want you to thrive. And so let's talk about our feelings. It's okay. This is a safe place to talk about our feelings. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this encouraged you. I hope this motivated you in some way. My name is Aisha White. I will talk to you later. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. If you like my content, you want to see more content like this, then subscribe, and you can look forward to some upcoming interviews that I've got with some smart, talented people that I'm really excited to talk to and talk about the things they're doing. Thanks for watching. Bye.